welcome everyone tonight on this beautiful night. Thank you for coming. I'm Peggy, and I'm president of Historic Pittsford. Historic Pittsford and the Village Comprehensive Plan Update Committee are sponsoring this forum series. This is the fourth in our series, and we've opened it up to the public, but our focus has been on educating the Comp Plan Committee about issues related to our little historic village and giving us some information so that we can plan for the future. I'd like to introduce Tom Cummings, who is president or chairman of our Comp Plan Committee, and he'll introduce the participants. Thank you.
We're here to talk about the economy. We've had previous talks about historic preservation and about traditional neighborhood design and about transportation. And this one, we're focusing on a vibrant village economy. And we're lucky to have three distinguished speakers with us. I'll introduce them all at the same time, I guess. And then we'll bring them up one by one. Laura Hackathorn is a trustee from the Village of Hamburg, and I believe she's also a business owner in the village. David Woods is an AICP certified planner. David is on the far end, and current chair of the Village of Geneseo Planning Board. And Sean Logue, is that correct, is a planning associate with MRB Group. And again, the reason we're doing this is when we have our community events, we're going to have a lot of opportunity for people who live here to say what they would like to see and how should things be. The purpose tonight is to hear from some outside experts, some people who have faced similar challenges in their work, and we're glad they're here. So, first up is Laura, and I won't read the whole introduction, but give me just a second. I'll do some of your background. Served on the Board of Trustees for the Village of Hamburg since her election in 2004. She is Board Liaison to Economic Development, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Village Court System. And earlier, Laura was a volunteer on the award-winning New York State Route 62. That's their village's Main Street project, and a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. Please welcome Laura Hackathorn.
Well, I am thrilled to be here tonight, and I really see that your community is doing something right. That is bringing you all together to hear the same information, so you're on the same page as you embark on this journey of updating your comprehensive plan. So, great job, leadership here. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got started. In 2001, I read in my local paper that Route 62 is going to be full depth road reconstruction, storefront to storefront, new sidewalks, new roads, new curbing, full depth, so sewers, water, et cetera. And I live a block from Main Street, and there was a local meeting at the public school, and I attended that. And I saw Dan Burden while I was there. Not sure if any of you are familiar with Dan Burden, but he talks about walkable communities. And so the DOT at the time was not very forward-thinking, if I may say that. They were going to move more traffic. That was their job. They were going to widen the road, left turn lanes. And our demographics in the village are lots of school children and elderly. And so it seemed a bit treacherous, what they wanted to do to our village and our community. That really wasn't our brand. We are a family place, a safe place. So Dan Burden talked about traffic calming and offered all types of road design solutions for that. So the village came together and we convinced the DOT to go with the traffic calming road design. And back then, roundabouts were considered kind of crazy and radical. We wanted 4. So we took out signals, and people were really up in arms about it. They had signs in their lawns, no roundabouts. I remember walking my kindergartner to school, and a man screaming across the street, no roundabouts. And my son saying to me, "Mommy, was he yelling at you?" I said, no, honey, just keep walking, it's fine. So anyway, traffic calming road design, and you know, as I came to Pittsford today and drove in, you know, you do have some of the elements. Do you have like, you don't have any roundabouts here or anything like that, right? No. No.
We're in the process of doing a pedestrian safety plan that will make improvements to each of the arteries leading to the four corners with refuge aisles and other things for traffic calming purposes.
Oh, great.
We also had Dan Burton here in 2004,
Awesome.
and our original traffic calming plan was written by Dan Burton.
Oh, wonderful. You'll see as we go through this, I can't tell you enough the quality of life change it made in our community. It completely transformed it into a kinder, gentler community. But we'll get to that. So this is our main intersection, Main and Buffalo Street. That's our main street. As you can see, we have gardens everywhere. Some of these pictures are a little bit older, but everything's filled in nicely. Believe it or not, this is, I'm sorry, this is, okay. This is Main and Buffalo Street, before and after. If you see that picture on the left, we were really downtrodden. That was really, you know, that wasn't that long ago. That was only about 10 years ago, believe it or not.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, same intersection. See the building, the big one on the big yellow side, and see how it's brick here on the right picture with the windows restored? We had one of our local developers come in and restore that building. It was going to collapse. Nick Tetzo and companies out of the city of Buffalo. But you can see that in the 70s, they had like slicked this terrible plaster all over the side of the building.
What's in that shop?
To the right?
Yeah.
That's called Staub Square. Tony Staub, a local business owner, actually owned a machine shop across town. And he was inspired about everything we were doing. And actually, we were looking for people to participate in our New York State Main Street grant. And he participated. He was one of the 6 original people who participated. Actually, my store is in that building. Small plug. So one of the most important ingredients in our revitalization are building design guidelines, and I have to thank Bob Corby for that. He did our reconnaissance level survey when he worked for Bureau Architecture, and one of the recommendations was you need design guidelines. And so we knew once we did the road design, redid the road to traffic calming, we knew we'd get a lot of investment. And Dan Burden had told us about this, to be prepared for investment. And what if all this investment came in and we had no design guidelines? You know, you could have lay people who really didn't know the proper materials or how to respect architecture and not to patch in small windows and maybe use drive-it everywhere. You know, if we didn't set that standard, we'd be in trouble right now. We'd look like a mess. I didn't use Hamburg photos for this because I don't like to out any local businesses when I show this. So these are just stock photos. So what drives me, what is in the forefront of all my decisions as a public servant is the pedestrian experience. Now, this wasn't, this was kind of like a granola thing 10 years ago. You know, they thought this was kind of crazy thinking. Because really no one was walking Main Street very much 10 years ago. And that was the problem. And everyone had gotten complacent. And in my lifetime, Main Street wasn't very walkable. Not like it was in the 40s and the 50s. We have a Hamburg Mall. And of course, what happens to so many communities, it sucked the life out of Main Street. So when we design streetscape, we talk about the pedestrian envelope. And many of you probably know this, 5-foot sidewalks, 0 setback or close to it, 75% window glass first floor. We have awnings, traditional awnings. Then we have perpendicular signs, tree canopy, street poles. We usually have planters and pots on the side. and that cocoons the walker. And Bob Corby years ago took me on a walk, and he'd make me stop every few feet, and he'd ask me, how does this make you feel? This feels safe. When you're exposed and next to rushing traffic, it's a whole different feeling, isn't it? School kids biking and walking. We wanted to retain our brand. And we didn't even know what that was 10 years ago. We had to ask ourselves, who is the Village of Hamburg? We knew that we wanted to be like East Aurora, which is this lovely historic town not too far away. And, we found out that we don't want to be like East Aurora, we want to be like Hamburg. So part of this has been developing a brand and then sticking to it. Walking and biking in a healthy community is very, very important to us. We actually hire crossing guards. I don't know if you have them here, but, and I remember as a mother, that was important to me. I'd walk my kindergartner to the corner, which was 2 houses away, while my baby was right behind me. It's looking out the window. I'd say, stand in the window, watch mommy walk to the corner. And I'd let my kindergartner walk. The crossing guard would wave to me. She'd say, I got her. And then she'd walk her to the next block, and the next crossing guard would take her. That's community building. Those are decisions we make every day. And we put bike racks everywhere. Well-maintained sidewalks, public-private partnership. We, the village municipality, buys really, really nice state-of-the-art sidewalk plows. It blows it off to the side. It does a really great job because we had to put our money where our mouth is. And if we support walkability, we better keep the sidewalks clean. So we made a commitment. We start in the central business district and go to the schools because they open up a little bit later. And then we work in concentric circles and take care of the village, which is about 2.5 square miles. Our population is about 9,600. Now, what we've done here is, I'm showing this picture because this and other business owners have been inspired by this walkability issue, and they've actually put in heated sidewalks. So now we have elderly that are in that block, and they can actually shop. They are not strapped to their home. They do not have to worry about slipping in these places. And that's a real commitment to the people that live in your community. Municipal decisions, safety, and comfort. In our design guidelines, one of the things we added was people spaces should not abut traffic spaces. And not that a car going 50 miles an hour couldn't run through those bushes. That's not the point. The point is it feels better. It's more inviting. And it's beautiful. And we can't really underestimate the beauty of the greenery. This is the same intersection, believe it or not. That is the one in the lower left is Legion and Buffalo Street for anyone who knows about Hamburg. Over asphalt, poorly maintained, wires everywhere. Now, the sad thing is, our local high school is just off the picture to the left, and kids who live on the other side of the street were walkers. And they had to cross that asphalt jungle. And people would go, this is the town-village line. So this side, the right closest to me, it was 30 miles an hour. But just past the intersection, it went up to 40. So it wasn't a safe place. I would never let someone under, a certain age, 7 or 8, cross there. So what we did is we put a roundabout in, and most of the asphalt now is a public park. And as you can see, the Nick Charlotte's, the ice cream place in the lower left, there it is in the upper right. Same photo. So where that asphalt is in the upper right, we made it as a cul-de-sac. So now traffic can't run down any little kid getting ice cream. And we've provided shelter and benches. And we'll see people of all ages enjoying ice cream.
Is that a state road?
Yes, it is. It is. You know, funny thing that happened with our DOT, they were so inspired by the homework we did and the public participation that they started saying, well, why don't we put in an overlook? Why don't we add flowers? Why don't we put steps here? They brought on a wonderful, landscape architect that really went above and beyond. So yes, it's a state road, Route 62. Incorporate amenities. That is a library, a portable library. Don't know if you guys have those here, but it's take a book, leave a book. And you do, which is, you're the only other place that has it, the places I've presented. Great. Our local high school shop kids build those. And it just says something, like public art, it says something about your community and what you think is important. Now, the DOT added all of these other amenities and paid for all of these as part of our road project. The planters in the lower left, we borrowed the design from Elmwood Village in Buffalo. And it was the DOT's folks that said, let's put a game board in that little park. And believe it or not, and you know that this is not the cheapest bike rack you've ever seen. They paid for the extras. So we appreciated that.
Now, how far is that from the business area?
It is, I would say, from the main intersection, a mile.
Okay.
Yeah. So beautiful is important, and we put in, as the state and then the village, put in gardens, and it was inspiring. And leadership is about doing all of those things you'd like to see. For example, for years before, to kind of turn the tide, that this is our living space, this is our community. It's up to us how beautiful it is. I take a walk and pick up trash just to make a point. I remember a lady saying to me, there's some litter around this intersection, and I'd say, you are absolutely right, and it should not be there, and I'll meet you here tomorrow morning at 9, and we'll clean it up together. And I don't think she came. Okay, connection to natural resources. Well, like you, we have water next to our village, and that is our 18-mile creek. And for many, many years, actually probably my whole life, that was overgrown. And that's right on our main street. And the DOT cleared it for us and said, well, why don't we build stairs for you? And why don't we make a path down to the water? And
Is this the same DOT?
yes, I know. That's why I have to, tell it like it is. This is the, it was their project, and we had such a community participation. I just think it was this groundswell of momentum. The days before Pinterest, we would go, our Route 62 committee would drive to Lewiston, we'd drive to Pittsford, we'd drive to Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we'd take pictures. And we had a big 3-ring binder with all the sleeves, sounds very archaic now. We had a photo album. And we'd sit with the DOT for a meeting, and we'd just pull out the big photo album. And we'd say, we want this, this is what we want. And they listened. So historic preservation, we are a certified local government. I know all of Pittsford is a historic, national historic place, right? I don't even know the right term for here, but we were actually designated, now it's been 6 years, hard to believe. But of course, that gives us, that made that, that was the decaying building in the lower left, and that made that project a go, because they got the tax credits. The middle picture, we actually had, that was a community project. We actually, actually that was my project. We called around to to get local materials donated, someone with an excavator. We had a local artisan make a wrought iron archway and gates. And we had someone teach us how to lay pavers, and it was a connectivity thing. to bring people from the parking lot behind, all the behind parking on Main Street, to the front of Main Street. And the DOT actually took that alleyway that we converted and did a big bulb out in a crosswalk as part of the road project. So I won't read all of these things to you, but I touched upon all of them. But our community absolutely transformed. We have events happening year-round and a very active business community. The business community was very much part of we had weekly meetings with all the business communities during the road project. So, commercial building permits issued. Village of Hamburg, 2004 to 2012. In 2004, we had 12. And we've had over 100 for the past few years. That's investment. I'll take a moment to tell you, there is retail springing up all over the village. But we find people are getting creative with building projects. And now we have to deal with like the abundance. For example, we have real tight parking. We have to redo some parking lots. We have property owners that want to build out to their lot line and use other people without regard to parking at all, and use everybody else's generosity. And so we're trying to figure that out. Increased traffic safety. The village has seen about a 90% drop in severe accidents and a 60% drop in accidents overall. You know, the road design creates a civility that we never knew would come. People are going so slowly that you're making eye contact and they're saying, no, you cross, no, go ahead and cross. And the pedestrians absolutely have the right of way, absolutely. And the cars that come through know it because they live there too and they want it to be safe. Public attitude toward roundabouts. Well, in a nutshell, people love them now. So here we go. Here's the scary picture that I showed you at the beginning. Main and Buffalo Street before 2008. And here it is now.
Wow.
To do that roundabout, did they have to acquire additional property?
They did. The state bought, we had some empty lots due to fire, just so happens. They didn't demo any buildings, but we had some pretty ugly corners that were important corners, but no one was building on them. Nobody was investing. So the DOT, paid these folks for pieces of their land. So they were compensated, and it was a win-win.
If you go back to the prior picture, how much of what we see disappeared? Like the yellow building, is that still there? Or is
That yellow building is that building.
Wow.
Same building.
Just a different facade and the tower?
Well, I have to say, there is a little bit of a cheat here. We require 2 and 3 stories, and this gentleman didn't want a second story. So those are empty windows. That's really not, but honestly, it's such an improvement. We know when to compromise. So all of that, yeah, completely new facade for sure, absolutely.
And what kind of stores are in those buildings?
Well, the one right behind the red vehicle is a restaurant called Juicy Burger Bar. It's quite a popular restaurant. They're doing quite well. Next to that is, a Prima Oliva. I'm sure you have the olive oil stores here. So there's a gorgeous retail store, and then there's a cafe. And then there's an atrium, and actually, my ladies' boutique is in there too.
Do you have any everyday drugstores, grocery stores, the sort of thing that brings people downtown regularly?
I so wish we had a drugstore right here, but it's actually the next block up. We have a Rite Aid. We do. It's very walkable. It is the next block up. Our grocery store, is where that where that little library I was showing you and the ice cream place, our top